want to order these. I'll throw them in the
I'll
teams.
do it on this one. Okay, on.
Or a pickleball.
Yeah. All right, I think
Or a
we're good.
Yeah. We need a swimmer. You do a little, I don't know what you would do for a swimmer. Have these little lifeguard things to make your keys float.
Are we recording? Yes. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Norman City Council Business and Community Affairs Committee for December 7th, 2023. Today we have 3 items on the agenda, and I believe the first one is a presentation regarding operations at the Young Family Athletic Center.
Before I start, I want to point out that me and Sean are wearing a vest on the same day at the same time. This is pretty amazing. So, we did not call each other this morning.
There's something about great lines there. I don't know what. But. So if that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our Parks Director, Jason Olson.
Perfect. Sorry for hijacking that real quick.
No problem. Wouldn't expect anything less.
So when we gave our initial presentation about facilities and taking over operations at Young Family Athletic Center, there was some concerns about a few of the policies, and we got feedback that you wanted to make sure we cleared that up. And the main thing that y'all were interested in was make sure that our Norman residents had the more than their fair share of time that it's in here. So I'm going to go over this real quick and just do a little bit of a full overview of where we're at and kind of give you an update on policies. We have a few contracts that are coming to fruition here in the next couple council meetings, and just want to make sure that y'all know all about that. But of course, I always throw this in a slide, remind everybody that this is a Norm 4 project. It was passed in 2015. Just kind of gives you a little more background of everything that y'all have heard a million times. Wanted to show you a few updated pictures. We're getting close to the end, which is very exciting. Everybody that's been involved in this, it seems like it's taken an eternity to get this building done, but not as long as the senior center. It seemed like that one went on for about a decade. But this one's getting close. They're actually landscaping on the outside. They're about ready to put up signage. Norman Regional signage is already up. They are inside polishing floors. These are pictures of trees that are going in, a little bit of landscape outside. Right here you can see this is where the concession stand is. We're getting ready. We had to move a couple electrical outlets for our operator. So that's the reason those walls are wide open. They've got ceilings in. You can see it over this on the left side of your screen. That is a lounge area where we'll have the tables for people getting concessions, and the cool wood ceiling that's above that. Competition pool. They kind of hit a point in the pool where they kind of hit the pause button. They can't go too much farther in here because they're practically done. Here and when we get about 2 or 3 weeks out, you'll see the pool contractors return. They'll plaster the pool, and almost immediately, as soon as that plaster goes in, they'll fill up the pool with water. They are putting in scoreboard, touch pads, screens, and scoreboards out there currently. Pretty cool to see everything kind of get knocked out as we're going. Like I said, it seems like it's been a super long process. This right here is kind of looking back down the hallway. It is a picture of where the Adidas store will go. The designers of the Adidas store thought it would look cool to put a key out there, a basketball key, so you see the free throw line and 3-point line, perfect lead into the Adidas store. And as you can see in the background, our wood floors are installed, painted, completed. Here's kind of a picture from the Norman Regional space looking over the whole basketball area. They are done. They completely shut down the basketball court or that area for about 6 weeks. Now we're able to walk in there. Everything that goes in there, they're making us wear booties, which is kind of cool. So you have to put on booties before you go in there. And if you have a lift, because there's a lot of still little things getting done in there, like electrical wise, and they're putting up the video screen that goes in there for our advertisers. Every single time that one of those lifts moves, you have to have 2 pieces of plywood and carpet under. And this is kind of showing a little bit of the preparations they have to do every time that lift makes any movement. And this is what they ask for us to do in the future as well. So even if we have to change a light or something like that, we're going to have to make sure we protect the floor so we protect our warranty. We added one picture of the clinic space. The reason we kind of added this is where we'll have our hospitality rooms during tournaments, but cool view from the second floor into the basketball area. Second time I added that picture by mistake. This is the recreation area pool. We will have this water will be slightly warmer than all the other water. 4 lanes, 25 yards. The same thing. They're kind of at a stopping point right here, waiting for our pool contractors to come back and plaster the pool and fill it up with water. Pictures inside of our locker room. One of the locker rooms. So here's the policy that we kind of all discussed during that council meeting, and hopefully we kind of really cleared it up. So we're adding this to our policies. The park board we did present this to it. They accepted the policy. They did not accept our hours, so we're going to talk to them again tonight. I'll kind of show you our adjustments that we did out there. But the YFAC will be open to the public on non-holiday weeks, a minimum of 80 hours weeks. The Parks and Recreation Department commits to have the center available for Norman residents for passive or planned activities, an average of 70 hours per week. We have our hours listed, our suggested hours listed. This has changed a little bit since we brought them for the park board. We initially did suggest closing on Sundays. We are trying to make sure that we keep our staff fresh and available, ready to go. They did not like that alternative on Sunday, so we're coming back with two possibilities for them tonight. One is opening up 4 hours on Sundays, or adjusting our policy to this. The YFAC will be all the stuff I said before, but the added part will be the YFAC will have a minimum of 100 hours of community open gym swim annually for Norman residents at no cost by opening a facility to the public during non-regular operating hours. So that would be our alternative to what they asked. They were worried about us being closed on Sunday. A lot of people not between school and work not being able to come during the week. We are hoping that we'll able to check those boxes by possibly just doing 1 day a month or one Sunday a month, or midnight basketball type programs where we just open up the gym and you don't have to have a membership to get in, which makes in our viewpoint, as we were throwing that around interdepartmentally, makes the facility way more accessible. Don't have to have an ID or money to get in at that point, or a membership. You just come during our open gym hours, our community open gym hours, and you can swim or play basketball, or play pickleball or volleyball.
Councilmember Schuler.
So just to be clear, the addition of the 100 hours is also with the Sundays being closed.
Correct. We would be looking to open up, maybe one Sunday a month, or trying to throw in some midnight basketball, which has been popular in
Parks
other
Board was
communities.
concerned about,
Closing on Sundays.
okay, they wanted you to be open on Sundays.
Correct.
Okay. So are you presenting these two options?
Yes, tonight to
them?
them.
Okay, and then.
Right after our
Okay, and then they'll have a recommendation on which one they like.
yeah.
Okay, just trying to be clear of what they're being presented.
Exactly, and this is the one that we're going to recommend, but we did bring back the other option where we are open on Sundays as well.
And if you were the other option with open on Sundays, would there be opportunity for no cost access to the facility at any time?
We'll probably work on that, have that available. We just wouldn't have it as available if we had Sundays completely open with non-operating hours.
I mean, because I like that aspect of it, having some available time for the community that doesn't cost.
Yeah.
Or is, kind of just open.
And I want to point out too that if we close on Sundays and make this an option, we're not going to do all 100 of our community hours on Sundays. We're going to try to
Right.
work it in evenings, mainly on Sundays, or staying open a little bit longer on a day that we know there's not school, or early.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I share Councilmember Schuler's thought process there. Councilmember Grant.
This kind of goes in line with some questions I got about the all and access to, like the pool, saltwater pool, heated saltwater pool for people with disabilities. And then we talked about if people were under 18, they would have access to YFAC. So how does that play out in these two models? Because I guess if you had 100 hours of community open gym swim time, then they're not having to schedule it specially to do physical therapy or whatever. But if you didn't have that 100 hours, then that becomes a scheduling thing, correct?
So I think with what you were asking, if we can open it up just certain hours for those with disabilities, we can make those.
Connect people with disabilities to specific hours for them.
Yeah, we can program those into our regular hours, so we don't necessarily have to program them outside of our regular hours. We'll have plenty of opportunities in the pool, and this is when we run that program, this is the pool we'll be looking at running that in. This is not going to be as warm as the adult wellness center. They like to pull hot. It's basically like a hot tub, but they keep it about 86, 88 degrees. This one would be in the low 80s, but same filtration system, same salt water chlorination that's going on here. And yes, we will absolutely have program hours for those with disabilities.
And there's accessibility. I didn't see
Yes.
it lifting, but
Yeah, so right here on your left side of the screen, that's a ramp, and we'll also have required by ADA law, we have to have a wheelchair lift at both of these pools. We actually have two in our competition pool.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You have to have two accesses for ADA on your pool.
Councilmember Holman.
The Sunday part, so do I understand it'd be open to Norman residents or be completely closed all day? That day?
If we go with this model and we did with the 100 hours of a community open gym, we're not checking, we're not going to require IDs or anything. It'll just be an open gym period that
Sundays?
anybody can come. Yeah.
Okay.
Some Sundays, be select Sundays.
Okay, 'cause it would seem like Sunday would be one of the busier days probably.
That's exactly the point that the
So-
park board brought up.
Yeah, I would hate for it to be not open on Sundays at all. Yeah,
And our kind of.
my expectation is it's a 7 days a week facility.
Correct. Kind of our viewpoint on it, I know this is going to surprise you when I say this, but we're as we're starting to program everything, we're very slim on staff. We think we'll be extending all of our staff. We only have 3 full-time staff planned over here. About, if I remember right, about 25 part-time staff. Those part-time staff are limited to. It has to be an average of under 30 hours per week that they work. So if you start doing the math, for open 85 to 90 hours a week, I'm not good at calculus or the advanced math, but we're starting to run a little short on staff to operate at that full model. Also, some of the reasons we talked about closing on Sundays, if you look at the recreational facilities around the country, there is a very select few that are operating on Sundays. We also have the possibility, if we're running events, Sunday would be a prime time for those events. So even though they were closed to the public on Sunday or closed to our members on Sunday, doesn't mean we're not running an event or having a rental on that Sunday. So it's still going to be there. This is just what was us trying to calculate of make sure that we have staffing levels correct out there.
Okay. So possibly tournaments going on Sundays, possibly having open gym time, which would require less staffing than normal?
Yes.
Because I assume that would just be the gym, the pool's not open.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to have people in there. We wouldn't have to have people in there operating on computers or necessarily answering phones. It'd just be community open gym time, have a few people out there checking out sports equipment.
Okay. Well, I like the 12 to 4 option for sure as maybe an open gym thing or whatever, but I do like the idea of it being open on Sundays if we can find a way to
Yeah.
staff it or whatever, as being a goal at some point. Whether,
I mean, that's reasonable.
Whether it's
Bring
now
it to you,
or-
want to bounce everything off
Yeah.
before we surprise anyone.
But I mean, I understand where you're coming from too about limited staffing availability and things like that. But yeah, I'm good with that.
Councilmember Nash.
So what exactly are passive activities?
Passive activities, so passive activity would be considered like a open gym. It's unplanned.
So anybody can come in and just get take. What about planned activities?
That would be your basketball leagues or classes or camps.
So what's the difference in the 10 hours between the 80 and the 70 if the reservations are in that 70?
So there are going to be times between practices like with our swing clubs or a tournament where the public's just not going to have access because we're going to have to close down either all the gyms or the pool for a meet or a tournament or a practice. This is just I think 70 is quite high. So once again, we're at our current rec centers, and I know we don't want to. It's not comparing apples to apples, but our open gym time is practically zero at our current rec centers.
So the tournaments and practices are part of that, in that 80 hours, but not the 70?
Correct.
So then what again was the planned activities in the 70?
Correct. Yeah, like if we have local leagues going on, that would be inside that planned activity. That's
So we've got planned activities and really planned activities.
open gym or open swim is not come and go as you want. So that's what we consider passive.
Okay.
Planned activity would be just any kind of organized program that we put together.
Well, for me, the concern was that would be in that category of passive activities, not being no formal obligation to offer a single passive hour, single hour to passive activities to the public. In this case, there are 0 hours of passive activities that are committed to the public because all those 70 hours could be the planned activities.
Yeah, but they're not going to be. Those are all activities that are dedicated to our residents.
But it's not in the policy.
This is the policy. So this is what Park Board actually accepted this part.
Can we split that up instead of just saying 70 hours for reservations or for the public to a part that's the public and a part that's the reservation so we can actually see directly what amount of time is going to be committed to being given to the public?
We can, we might be able to figure out a way to adjust the policy. We also can, we have,
I know we can, but will we? Before we adopt this or anything else?
now we can take another shot at it if that, but right now that's at the, kind of at the Park Board's discretion, but we can definitely take another shot at it and see if we can figure out the passive activities is what you want more of, or a passive.
I want to see a commitment to having it open to the public for passive activities, for people to be able to go in there and use it.
So you're asking for them to specifically lay out how much open gym time?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, if you could even present to Parks Board that said, is there a minimum of that 70 hours that's going to be dedicated to planning or to unplanned activities?
So we do-
Passive, I'm sorry.
No,
Get
there
the
you go.
labels right. Yeah, yeah.
We do have schedules that are in Kellen. Do you have an idea of? He's been working on schedules, and as the evening, as the day progresses, usually our evenings get a little bit busier, and just depending on the activities that we have planned, I would think the majority of the time that's within that 70 hours is going to be either we're going to have some swim lanes open or we're going to have basketball courts that are open to the public. So it's unplanned activities going on. I mean, 8 courts is a lot.
Right. I can definitely see where Councilmember Nash is coming from. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, the goal is to always have at least one court open for the public to be able to use.
Okay.
If somebody walks in and just randomly wants to go shoot hoops or do something on the court, they have that ability to do that.
Okay.
So whenever, as much as we can do that, we will do that.
So maybe it's not a minimum time requirement. You just say we will always have one court open. I mean, or something to that effect. So we know that there's always.
There would be some instances where we will not have a
Sure.
court open. That's the reason we're trying to hit that, give us a little bit of room to operate in. And that's kind of our 10 hours
No.
that we're talking about.
That's where that mathematical operation, the average, comes into play. That's fine.
Yeah.
You can call it an average over the span of a certain set of time.
Yeah.
You don't have to say this specific, a set number of hours every single day or a set number of minutes every hour. But at least on average, per week or per month, whichever makes the most sense, some kind of commitment to having this place open to the public. Because that is the very thing that I was concerned about at the beginning, was
Yeah.
that we could have this thing reserved for private use all year round, every hour that it's open, and the public could see none of it, even though the public is paying for pretty much all of it.
Yeah, and I have no problems. I think that the majority of we'll have schedules ready to go. We can show those to park board. The majority of those 70 hours a week are going to be passive. And that's what we're saying. We're going to make sure that we have activities open for the public 70 hours.
I mean, at the
a
very
week.
least, can we put a majority will be, because
Yeah, we can figure
that
it-
would then
figure it
imply that at least 35 of those hours would be committed to the public. Just something that tells the public, this is what you're paying for. This
And we're also going to have schedules that we put out on a weekly basis too, that list our open swim times, our open gym times. And we're pretty tight on our schedule. We have a majority of our stuff kind of planned out. And where we kind of hit problems where we have planned activities going on is mainly around when we're talking about our local youth leagues. There's going to be certain times during the week where we have 8 games going on at one time, but those games won't start until after school. So we're talking about 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. So during, especially from 7 a.m. in the morning when we open till 5 or 6 o'clock, we're guaranteed we'll always have courts open for the public to come use on this passive activities we're referring to.
Well, these guarantees need to be in the policy so that somebody's feet can be held to the fire if that doesn't turn out.
All right?
Yeah, like I said, I understand where you're coming from because I've heard those same concerns in the community. And so just being able to address them in black and white, I think that's pretty important. So,
I do
Councilman
have
Holman.
another unrelated
sorry.
question, but I think it's unrelated.
So just so clear, Monday through Saturday, or if I went in on like Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon,
Mhm.
I would either have a membership or I could pay a 1 day pass.
Yeah, there's a day pass.
And I can go in and grab a ball and start shooting hoops
Yes.
if there's wherever there's an open space.
Correct.
And then the open gym, wouldn't have to have a membership or pay. You could just get in free or show that you're a Norman resident.
Yeah.
Or what?
So the community open gym would, if we do times like that, and we'll have those planned activities, I just think we'll have more opportunity to do it to do those activities if we have a day that we can commit to it once per month where we don't have to be open for members. At that point, anybody can walk in at no cost. We'll have basketballs available. We'll have open lanes for them to go swim, and they can go in there and do their activities.
Okay. So like you were
And those
saying,
would be passive.
like most of the day, there's not going to be probably going to be a tournament at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday during the school
No.
year, right? So that would be the passive time.
Correct.
Councilor Nash is asking that we put that in writing.
Yeah.
Yes, so, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councilman Nash, you still have some?
Yeah, the picture of the basketball courts. Yeah. Very large room. How deep is that room that we're looking at here?
So your average basketball court, so they're 94 feet times 4 deep, so that's probably 500 foot,
376.
Okay.
give or take.
We have paper airplane competitions in there. The world record, I
Absolutely.
think, is like 398 feet,
Lovely.
something like that. 289 feet.
Absolutely, that sounds cool.
Good. Can we put that in the policy?
I think it sounds fun, so I'm in.
Time reserved for paper.
We got Tinker here. The current world record's held by an engineer from Boeing.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, these aerospace engineers, they like building paper airplanes.
like
And they're
it.
good at it.
I like it.
Give you a little update on our contracts we've been working between our city attorney's office, the Parks Department, and these groups. We have one that's been accepted, which was with the Optimus Club, was accepted last park board, and that's with the Optimus Club. Is signed agreement that we would do community basketball and volleyball leagues. Just quickly off the top of my head, we collect all the revenue. We run the website. They actually set the schedules for the games and organize the teams on those. So Just a quick review of what we put in that contract is with the Optimus Club. As we collect revenue, they get 7% of that collected revenue to upfront to organize the leagues and organize the tournaments. They actually have most of the manpower on it. And then as we run through there and pay all our expenses towards the once we make our last payment to our last ref or buy the last trophy, we sit there and we split the revenue at the end of it 50-50. Norman Public Schools, we have sent our contract to our what we put in our agreements, $50,000 per year and 20% of ticket events at $50,000 a year. And I might phrase this incorrectly, but it's paid through TIF funding that was kind of leftover part of unwinding the TIF out there at the UMP that was just dedicated to the swim and gym complex for rental agreements. Sooner Swim Club, we have sent them a contract. They are their contract offer. They have not signed yet, or it hasn't been accepted by Park Board, but it's $15 per hour per lane and 25% of swim meets and duels if they have those inside the YFAC. We have kind of focused in on a club volleyball. We have also sent them a contract. Haven't got it back signed yet, but that's $50,000 per year for practice rental times up to 1,250 hours of court time throughout the year.
Councilman Holman.
And so when there's a swim meet or a basketball tournament going on, it's closed to the public, but any member of the public could come and pay a ticket price to come in and watch it? I mean, we got the bleachers and everything set up.
Oh yeah, I mean they're more welcome on it. They're depending on what the event is. Most of the events aren't going to have admission charges. In fact, that was very specific in our Optimus Club contract that they can't charge admission for any events at the YFAC.
Okay. Would you allow them to do that at other facilities?
Correct. So depending on whatever contract we sign with whoever is running that tournament, they can charge an admission fee.
So
Some of them don't.
if somebody in Norman's just interested in swim meets, they could go and watch the swim meets.
In majority of swim meets, I've been told, I haven't been invited to too many of them, but they don't charge a admission charge for the swim meets. This is usually a team fee that goes along with those guys getting in there.
Great.
Or gals. So as we, our next council meeting, I think we hopefully slip this in where it'll get approved. We have a contract agreed to by Beanstalk. We just need to get it signed by you guys with Beanstalk Coffee and Snow. The gist of their contract, they will be the exclusive food and beverage provider inside the Young Family Athletic Center. Their areas will be the concession stand and tournament lounge space, which totals up to about a little bit over 1,100 square feet. Their operation hours must match the operation hours of the YFAC, so they'll be serving coffee and whatever is regularly, snow cones, what's regularly on their items. During our open hours, Beanstalk will have complete control of the menu. The city will retain pour rights, and as you get educated about these centers, you start learning different things, but pour rights are basically if the city chooses to sign a contract with Coca-Cola or Pepsi or another the brand, usually there are some contract fees that go along with that for selling that inside of your center. So if we do find get the honor of signing a contract with that, we retain all the money from that contract, and they have to basically use who we assign to that. Beanstalk has full catering rights inside the YFAC, so if there's an event or a basketball tournament, whoever's running that event has to use Beanstalk, and Beanstalk is going to work with a bunch of local caterers and companies inside of town to make all that happen. The city is exempt from using Beanstalk on catering events for its own events. The terms of the lease, Beanstalk will pay $35 per square foot, which totals up to $40,250 annually, plus 2% of all their sell. Their lease includes all utilities, because we don't have a way to basically meter them on their own on anything, excluding internet. They do have a right to hop on the public Wi-Fi, but our IT department is saying at your own risk. So if the internet goes down on the weekend, we don't want to be responsible for coming up there and fixing it. Agreement will automatically renew annually up to 5 years. We have also have agreed to a certain area, which is the windows right in front of the lounge area. They can use to market their own business. We also have we're supposed to, once we get from the developer out there, once we get an easement, we'll build a entry sign. They will have space on the entry sign. Beanstalk has to own all their equipment, insure all their employees and their business, and the termination clause is 90 days, I believe, and 60 days with cause. So we're pretty excited to get finally release who it's going to be, and we're super excited it's a local business. This is just kind of a little chart of full breakdown of the square footage and where they will be at. And so if you walk into the concession stand, those that have been in there, walk in the main entrance, it will be right on your right if you go towards the basketball area. We are working on further details with the Trae Young Foundation. I think the last time I talked to you guys, it was the hospital was going to operate the Adidas store. That has changed. Now it's going to be the Trae Young Foundation. They are also working with a local vendor inside of Norman to operate the store for them. What we are going to ask of them is $50,000 a year for the Adidas space, plus $20,000 annually in Adidas merchandise. That is also above the average going rate for UMP, which is about, on the high end, it's about $35 per square foot. We would want them to sign a 5-year agreement. They would also have to build out all their space inside the Adidas area to go along with the $20,000 annually in Adidas merchandise. We're offering that the YFAC employees have to wear Adidas branded clothing. And like I said, they'll be responsible for build out. The Young family has offered at an earlier time to pay $75,000 to the LED screen to expand it from 64 feet to 74 feet and change it from, which I didn't know the Ks were out there. Our I will say our AV guy completely geeked out once we signed the contract with him. But it'll go from a 4K to a 5K resolution. I was told the reason you want to do this is for your video game leagues. What do we call it?
Esports.
There we go. Esports. Thank you. I'm not cool enough to be in esports. So payment is due within 30 days of our contract execution. Also, the Young Family Athletic Center or Young Family Foundation wants an office space at the YFAC. We're offering them one office space, and they have also offered to fund one employee on their own. This is not associated with any of our staff. And also they want to fund 2 basketball courts or futsal courts on the outside. This is as long as the city and the hospital builds certain areas on the outside of the place, and we've kind of talked about an outdoor plan, so it's going to show you those as well. So when we worked with the architecture firm, which is the same architecture firm that the hospital used, which is JHBR, this was their original plan. Since then, we've they put in a playground, but even though that the playground is possible, is kind of in their area where we're talking about if we have future expansion of basketball gym. So we're not so sure if we're going to do that or not. But if you look at the back area, the outdoor recreational spots, you see the basketball courts right there in the south. We have a shaded picnic area a little bit north of that. 6 pickleball courts. The city would be responsible for the shaded area and the 6 pickleball courts. Working a little bit farther north is a sand volleyball pit that is 4 sand volleyball pits, followed by outdoor turf area, which the hospital is also responsible for. That is 60 yards long, big enough to do a small soccer game or 6 or 7-on-7 football or flag football. Way in the future, nobody has taken claim of this building yet, but there is a little area right there for a future weight training facility if we ever get funding for that. And what's cool about that we'll have garage doors that basically open to the turf area. But that's our outdoor master plan, and the Young family wants to participate in those two 2 basketball courts as long as the city would participate in the shaded area, pickleball area, and the hospital would participate in which they are planning to build, is the sand volleyball courts and the turf field.
Councilmember Grant.
So for the areas that don't have funding, but we've identified what could go there, is this a part of another Norman Forward 2 ask in the collection of projects we're talking about?
So, no, there's a possibility we might have funding at the end of the project, and that's probably where we would build it. These courts, the pickleball court and the shaded area in the full aspect of things are not all that expensive. They're about $400,000 total together. The basketball courts is the way that what we've asked them to do, which is make them into futsal courts, which is, those who don't know, futsal is basically a 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 soccer game that goes inside there. So interesting enough, the Parks Department took a little trip up to Oklahoma City. I think the only futsal courts that are in the Oklahoma City area are in Scissortail Park and another area in downtown. We went there in midday. The only activity going on basically in the whole park was in the futsal courts, and both the futsal courts they had were full. So it's a pretty interesting area, but these would be basketball or futsal courts. Just a view from the other end. We also think it'd be a great area to have, especially for those people who are there for a tournament or multiple games on basketball, to go out and have an area to kind of recreate in the back. Also, we see these pickleball courts is pickleball people are very advantageous, want a bunch of area. They're also aggressive. The only way we can get pickleball courts inside the basketball gym is for us to tape them down. So we're hoping that we can fit these pickleball courts in to basically offer ourselves relief for the pickleball players.
It's like a great space for a mural.
Oh, heck yeah. There's a lot of mural area. A little view of the shaded area. And as always, Trey is willing to take any questions.
Councilmember Holland.
There's also, I know we do, but the space for a future pool expansion, right?
Yes. And I don't think I have the plan. If you look at this area, right there in the front area left, that big green area, that is our 50-meter pool area plus enough room to have 1,000 spectators, which hits us at the minimum of what OSSAA would need to hold the state meets.
So we've got the ability to expand for a bigger pool in the future if funding is approved, and then also the ability to expand the indoor courts further as well. So
Correct.
a lot of room for future expansion for any residents wondering.
Yes.
Okay.
So next steps are to go to the park board tonight, and then will this operations agreement come back to council before an actual meeting, or we have a study session, or?
We can bring it back to another
Just curious
committee and
if
give you
we'll
an
have enough time to
update
talk
on that.
I think before.
We'll bring up what Councilmember Nash was
That'd be
talking
great.
about tonight.
That'd be great.
We don't have it prepared, but it'd probably have to be a January park board meeting to get that adopted, so it'll be after that. But we're not opening until mid-January.
I was just about to ask, does that throw a wrench in your time frame at all? Okay, well, I appreciate that. Councilmember Nash.
We go back to the terms of the Beanstalk Adidas.
Yeah. Which one do you want to look at first?
Let's look at the Adidas one.
Okay.
Oh,
These are just proposals. We don't.
okay, so this hasn't been
This
adopted.
is.
Nobody's
we-
signed this one yet.
We have not sent anything to them, but we
Okay.
have sent something to the Trae Young Family Foundation, and they told us to put it in a contract form and send it to them for their attorneys to review.
Okay. So all YFAC employees must wear the Adidas branded clothing and shoes. Would that be at their expense or is that part of the 20,000?
That's just part of that $20,000 a year.
Okay.
And it's not that they have to wear Adidas stuff. Is they wouldn't be allowed to wear other like a Nike or Under Armour stuff. So if they just had a plain dress shirt or polo, they'd be fine.
Okay. And is that just YFAC? Well, does Norman Regional employees fall under the YFAC employee?
No,
Okay, so that
They're
won't
separate
apply
from
to
us.
them.
correct.
So they can wear like the Nike swoosh on their scrubs?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so on this one, even though we're giving them the exclusive, like, we got the exclusivity with them, there's not a percentage of their sales like there is with Beanstalk.
Not that we have offered, no.
Why not?
The Family Foundation is very upfront with saying that they've donated $4 million. They plan on putting a lot more money in, investing into not only Norman, they don't want their money to be tied up necessarily towards that. So the $50,000 a year, which is probably kind of in the same neighborhood where we'd be at anyways with plus the $20,000 in the same neighborhood where we're going to be with Beanstalk, including their 2% of sales.
What are we going to do with the rest of the Adidas merchandise that doesn't go to shirts and shoes?
So that will be given to us on a gift card, basically, and if it doesn't get used 1 year, it'll just roll over. The city will have that to buy clothing for their employees.
I know the internet works. Gift cards work anywhere.
Yeah.
Now on the Beanstalk, that 2%. This has not been sent to them yet.
No, they have accepted this.
Okay, so this one has been accepted. And that 2% of all sales, I mean, it's on one hand I can see it justified because they've got the exclusive, just full rights. They're the only entity. It's a big boost to them, but at the same time, it is pulling a lot from their revenue. But I guess if they already accepted it, then there's not a whole lot to talk about on this one.
And two, so they'll be operating kind of regularly, like one of their three other stores they have in Norman, between when they're not tournaments or basketball games going on. Once basketball games or sporting events or swim meets happen, they'll basically flip a switch, turn it into a concession stand, offer popcorn, hot dogs. I'm sure the prices will probably go up at that point to whatever concession stand prices are. So, yeah.
Now, if sports betting ever becomes legal in Oklahoma, is sports betting legal in Oklahoma? It's not, right?
Sure, actually.
It's a debate right now.
Okay.
So
If
it's
it
legal
does.
in tribal casinos.
Would the city be able to have a bookkeeper in the WIFAC? Or is that...
I guess that's a question for Catherine and you guys.
Oh, okay.
OTV right there in there.
Well, and I hate to rush the discussion on this one, but I know we've got a 5:15 hard stop and 2 more items to get to. So I think since this will be coming back to council for further discussion, I'd say we put a pin in this one for right now. I'm excited to hear what the Parks Board has to say tonight, and look forward to future discussion. Appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah. So, second item on our agenda tonight is a discussion regarding ADUs, or accessory dwelling units. And I actually asked staff to come present this item, and I know that there's been some challenges in-house with some illnesses and people just being unavailable. So I know that the presentation tonight might not be fully vetted, and so I just want to take the opportunity to kind of say this is more of a open discussion and not necessarily a down in the weeds kind of discussion on the policy issue. So this will have a chance to come before City Council on a study session, Planning Commission, and several opportunities to talk about this after this, but wanted to go ahead and get the conversation started tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Sorry, I guess the PowerPoint's not loaded, so
Yeah, it's on there.
it is?
You just might not see it on this screen. Is there another screen?
I didn't know what I'm doing. Shocker. Okay, so first I'll go over kind of the general guidelines that we think we have consensus on, and then I'll go over some stuff we need feedback on. We started kind of drafting an ordinance and realized that this is a little stickier than maybe we thought. So we'll start with just the general stuff I think we all agree on. So we'll be allowing ADUs in most of our residential zoning districts and in our agricultural districts. The for sure exception is RM4, which is our mobile home zoning district, and those have to have licenses. So it wouldn't really work in there. We talked about removing the 40% building coverage maximum, but keeping our 65% impervious coverage maximum. And then 650 square feet allowed for the ADU living area. We kind of talked about footprint versus just the living area. So with this, if they wanted to have a garage, that doesn't count towards their square footage.
And before you move too far past that one slide, I had conversations with former Councilmember Hall on this, and she alerted me to that the language in the historic district guidelines is 575 square feet. And I don't know what the functional difference is between 650 and 575, but if it makes things easier to keep it consistent from document to document, I'm more than willing to look at that.
We're kind of used to enforcing
The 650?
the two different
okay.
codes. So for HD, they can enforce like stricter requirements, but they still have to follow what's in the zoning. So they can go smaller, but they couldn't say they wanted bigger.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think would be accurate. And then height cannot exceed the principal dwelling unit. This is what we already have for our accessory buildings. So essentially, you'd have to have a 2-story principal dwelling unit, main house, to have a garage apartment that's 2 stories, or an ADU that's 2 stories. For sure, a 2-unit maximum per lot in R1, and this is kind of one of our outstanding items. We'll go over the other districts. Mobile homes would not be permitted to be used as an ADU in any district. There would be no parking requirement for ADUs, and then we can't waive utility connection fees for these. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's interesting.
Do you have any questions about what we've kind of agreed on, or do you want me to go on to?
No, I'll just dig into the parking one real quick because I kind of know the logic behind it. We're doing these, or wanting to do these by right across the city, and so requiring somebody to add basically a secondary driveway in the suburbs around their house back to, it just seemed very impractical and kind of going the opposite direction that we wanted to go in terms of stormwater and building coverage and things like that. So we talked about requiring parking in the core where you've got alleys potentially, but I know that's something you guys are still looking at. So Councilmember Schuler.
Yeah, I'm just thinking too about how this works with like streets and traffic, and I live in a neighborhood in I would say adjacent to Core Norman, that is older infrastructure that has a lot of 1-car driveways, 1-car garages that are now converted, and so like lots of street parking, which I'm not opposed to, but just thinking about, talking about how this might impact those streets. Not against having no parking, because I think that like this also talks about connectivity and walkability and promoting kind of that kind of lifestyle within especially our core areas, but even in kind of the adjacent areas. So I don't know if anybody from Public Works wants to speak about how you see this playing out in certain areas.
We share your concerns. We frankly don't have a lot of experience with ADUs in Norman, so we're doing our research. This is, again, as Councilor Peacock said, it's coming at us all pretty fast, and we haven't really had a chance to do all of our research. Scott and David and the team are trying to do that, but we have the same concerns. Where are they going to park? We know they'll have cars, or we generally think they'll have cars, just like Center City. We have lots of parking challenges in Center City because we haven't required enough parking mandated with the building, so they're ending up in the alleys, they're ending up double parking, they're ending up on the streets, and it's causing a share of concerns. So hopefully we'll be able to bring back more information
And so,
next time.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that, we don't do this because of that. I'm just trying to understand like what the impact might be.
Sure.
Or if, the conversation then just goes to like, well, we stop using cars as much, and there's, talk about walking and using other modes of transportation like
yeah,
bikes and, other things. So
you almost have to make owning and using a car uncomfortable enough to where, it's
yeah.
realistically, give somebody an incentive to not have to drive a car. And so I think in the core, allowing parking in the core makes a little sense because again, it's alleys. You can drive down the alley where your ADU is located, pull in off the alley. And so that's an easy fix. And I think that's going to be the area that probably has the most challenges from on-street added parking and things. And so not so much in the suburbs where the streets are already, 40 feet wide and, there's not a lot of, so definitely something to look at.
It's just something I already hear concerns in my neighborhood, specifically around people being mad that there are so many cars that are parked in the street, and then lots of comments and concerns about, public safety vehicles and fire trucks and stuff getting through. And, I know that you guys are inundated with requests to study those things and to make sure and that the fire department is, all good. And for the most part, though, even when cars are parked on both sides of the street, that is all still accessible.
Right.
So I really don't have much concern because it's already happening in the neighborhoods. And frankly, it makes our streets safer in a lot of ways because
Absolutely.
it requires people to slow down.
Absolutely.
As they go through those neighborhood streets. So I'm not opposed to
Right.
street parking.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think you're on board. So. Councilmember Graham.
I was gonna say, in our discussions around this, we talked about maybe having signage that said one side of the street was for parking and the other side wasn't, because there are some narrow streets. And then also with that 650 square feet living area, for those that have access to an alley, they could put a one-car garage and have access that way. So I see some solutions for the core, but also I'm of the mindset that as I believe a lot of these ADUs will cater to students, that they find alternative ways of getting around town.
So would you all be open to parking on one side of the street, or what? What would you like? to
Could
see?
it be like a resident request? Like, I wouldn't want to impose it, but if there are people who are on certain streets, like say Reed, which is a narrow one, and they're saying we want one side parking only, maybe a process for them.
Yeah, I think I agree that it should be citizen initiated like it is currently, right?
We do have the
We
power
have
to
a
change it if we want.
Policy for petitioning the city, the residents, I think it's 60%, so 60% of the residents on that side of the street would petition the city to remove their on-street parking. We see 3 or 4 of those a year probably, but it is citizen and property owner driven, and that's really worked well, as opposed to the city going in and using your police powers to take it away. That's not well received.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, we did it like on Lincoln Avenue, which is almost entirely rentals, but a couple of the 3 property owners that still live on it were concerned about trucks and all sorts of stuff parking. And so we initiated, they didn't have enough people to do a signature petition, so we initiated that change on their request. But used to it was only the petition was the only way to change it.
Right.
We changed it to where the council could change it ourselves if we felt there was a real need to or not. So, but ideally, yeah, if the people that live on the street want it, then they ask for it.
I think that's fair. And the way I've envisioned these is that they would be, either aging in place for an elderly parent that's wanting to move out of the big house into a little house. So in theory, they're sharing cars or sharing a parking driveway or a garage, or it's, the young person's first house, they're moving into the ADU. And so again, sharing resources. So in theory, my idea is that it'll be the same family, so there won't be a competition necessarily for the garage. But I think everybody makes some really great points, and it's really worth looking into. So, Councilmember Nash.
Yeah, so I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head here that, in my view, ADUs, aging in place, old grandparents, they're not going to necessarily have a huge need for a car, especially considering the convenience of having them living there on the property because they're up there in years, but then also children. Other than that, the only time that I would see that it'd be a discussion to mandate or require any kind of parking would be in a completely different situation. That's if these are tenants and not just family living there. In that case, would that fall in the realm of accessory commercial units, or are we bulking that in with the accessory dwelling units?
Commercial unit would be something separate, but I see where you're going with that. And so I don't know if you've got it in your presentation, but one of the things I talked about as a fail-safe was requiring these to be owner-occupied. So owner lives in the main house, and so there's eyes on the property. And so to know that this ADU isn't going to be, even if it's a rental, it's not a party house, or it's not a burden on the neighborhood necessarily. And so I think in your instance, we might want to look at how that functions, how that parking functions.
All right. Okay, so we'll start with our outstanding items. We have some zoning districts where garage apartments are already allowed, where they can be whatever square footage they want. Same with guest houses. It's kind of the same question. We're hesitant to take away something that's already allowed, but I think unless you have some other ideas, I think the two things we see are you're allowed to have your garage apartment, or a guest house might be a better example. For a guest house, it cannot be rented or leased, and it can't have a kitchen. So you could have your guest house that's 900 square feet, but you can't lease it or rent it out, or you can have the ADU that's 650 square feet. Which kind of leads into the next one of if you have 2 acres or more in RE A1 and A2, because you have more than 650 square feet. Because if you have 40 acres with
Right.
a 2,500 square foot house, is 650 feet practical.
Sure,
So-
and I think, I can't remember what the actual numbers were, but when I sent this ordinance over to staff, there was a table associated with basically like if you X amount square foot house, you get X amount square foot ADU, and it was all proportional, and so they kept it, within scale and character of the existing houses, so.
And it caps at 800.
I couldn't remember exactly what it capped at,
That's what came to my mind initially was
yeah,
be based on the square footage of the
right.
Existing house.
primary.
Which, on a 2 acre or more site, I think it's a lot more appropriate to have a larger ADU, but I don't, again, the whole idea is this is easy and it's one set of rules for the entire city, no matter where you are, and to make it easy from a developer standpoint, from a staff administration standpoint, and just really, the goal here is to get as much density and affordable housing as we can on the market, and so I don't want to create too many hoops or too many extra sets of rules, if that makes sense.
I like the chart though.
It was pretty straightforward.
So like having some kind of chart that maybe allows for up to a cap and then,
So if we did that, what would you want the cap to be?
What was that? I'm sorry.
If we did the chart, what would you want the cap to be?
I mean, I like the 650, but that's,
Well, Toby Keith wants to have a 5,000 square foot.
so if it's helpful, the chart says that basically you cap out to 1,000 square feet would be 700 square
Okay.
feet allowed, and then up at 1,200 square feet, that's where you get into 8. So anything over 1,200 square feet would 800 is the only thing that is allowed.
it's like 60% or 66% of the.
Well, and
okay.
I wonder too, like it also we're also requiring that they can't exceed the 65% impervious coverage. So like that will also limit people
Right.
on the size that they can go.
Right.
So
Unless you have a huge lot.
sure.
I would
We have
almost,
10 acres.
I would almost rather just keep it at 650, and then if they want to go larger than that, they've just got to come for a special approval. I mean, which, we would evaluate on a case-by-case basis. It's hard to know if the 2 acre site, is it 2 acres plus 3 shop buildings and a house? It's hard to know.
Can I ask about the mechanism you're talking about? Because if it were a separate approval that comes straight to council under the ordinance versus a variance of a development standard, that would
Okay.
go to BOA normally.
Right.
Which are you thinking of?
Well, in a variance, you're talking like 5 to 10% variation from the rule, right? If you go to you couldn't come with a 1,300 square foot ADU and say, I just need a minor variance, I feel like.
So the variance standard is actually, first, it would have to be based on hardship, so that might be,
Okay,
that would be a limiting factor to someone who
Yeah.
simply wanted more space
Right,
for no
right.
good hardship reason.
Right.
But beyond that, it's the least variance required to alleviate the hardship. So if we didn't want it to be hardship-based and we wanted more flexibility, it would probably have to be a different mechanism than a BOA variance.
okay. Not sure that I have a good answer for you right now.
Okay,
I
we'll
need
put
to
it on
think-
the
I need to
list.
think about that. Former Councilmember Hall and I have been talking about this a lot because she offers a great historical perspective on this issue. I know that it was very front and center in her time on council. So I'd love to ask if you have any thoughts or opinions on this. Not to put you on the spot.
Well, I'm really glad to see this discussion because I think, a lot of things continue to change and evolve, and there's been a lot of conversation about small incremental development and taking that next step with the ADU. So I think really in a nutshell, I just want to make sure that you all are considering how a blanket ordinance is going to possibly have unintended consequences. And I really like the idea of owner occupied to start out as you roll out an ordinance, because if we're really talking about, are we talking about developers building as many ADUs as fast as they can?
Right.
Or are we talking about family units, whatever that looks like? Taking that next step to increase capacity for their lot as a rental property or a studio or, lots of different uses. So there's just a lot of differences between parts of town, and in Core Norman in particular. I think we all understand that the student housing market drives the market. So when we talk about moving in your mother-in-law or all of those kinds of things, or, the term I want to ban forever, granny flat, that will never happen in Core Norman. It's going to be, if you open the door to allow investors to do this, then you're going to see that driven by the student housing market in the core. But I also love having this discussion and the path forward to allow family units, property owners, be able to take that next step in incremental development to modestly start increasing density, having options for family members, or using it rental to support, being able to even live in the core anymore, that kind of thing. So I think those things are really important to understand. And again, I like the idea of this chart and basing it on square footage, so that we're really thinking about, is that cap, whether it's 650 or, whatever number you all decide on, is that going to be appropriate for the smaller lot sizes in the core? And is it going to be appropriate to, how that's going to add to the rhythm of the neighborhood? Are we going to start having this overwhelm? So having the impervious surface in place, that's great. Having, referencing the historic district guidelines, there's also a lot of language about making sure it's not bigger than the principal structure, and all these things that you don't really think about when you just say, yeah, everybody can do whatever they want. So it's having that nuance and making sure you're thinking about the unintended consequences, because how it's going to be built out in the outer parts of Norman versus how that's going to get built out in the core is going to be distinctly different, and you just have to be prepared for that. And to your point, Mr. O'Leary, about parking, that's also a completely different discussion in different parts of town and in Core Norman. I would love to continue encouraging people to not have their vehicle, but realistically, we're just not there right now.
Slow grind.
And we have problems every single day of the week with people blocking sidewalks, parking on lawns, parking in places they're not supposed to be parking, because we're not taking into consideration the reality of how people live, and particularly students. I think most students today bring a vehicle with them, and we've got to be mindful of that in the core, which is, different than other parts of town. So those are really the main things.
Well, those are great points. I mean, share your concern about student housing. I think Councilman Grant has alluded to this many times. Moving them from an existing house and putting them in an ADU, it leads to market compression. That opens up a house, which we just need more housing stock in general. So I mean, I share the concern, but I think it's a good thing, and as long as we can address some of the concerns related to parking, related to multiple people living in one space. So I think I really appreciate that.
To continually try to paint a picture of the ADU is going to be this thing for, a family member or this, that, or the other thing. The ADUs are going to be a very attractive rental property in Core Norman, and I think that's great. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that's a great developmental step, and feeds into all of the things that we're learning about strong towns, and as we develop our new comprehensive plan and take all of this into consideration and how that all works. I'd much rather see an ADU added to a small, older, historic neighborhood than overbuilding, by size and scale, and calling something a single-family house when it's really a duplex.
Right.
So I think the ADU form is a great first step to adding that density, but I want to make sure we're doing it in a thoughtful way and not opening it up to creating an environment where the people who actually live here are not going to be able to take advantage of living in one of these.
Right. And that was exactly the intent behind the owner-occupied portion is, as we all have heard
Yeah.
over and over, going to the SEC is just going to draw all this investment and everything to our town. And so the last thing we want is to displace Norman homeowners for out-of-state real estate investors.
So
So,
I think you're absolutely moving in the right direction. It's
Okay.
just the devil in the details.
well, I definitely appreciate you being here to add that, because no, absolutely. I knew that would color the conversation. I don't know who had their hand up first. I'm sorry.
Can I clarify just
Yes.
a couple of things? So we did have it in there that it has to be smaller than the principal dwelling unit.
Okay.
There's something else I was gonna add.
If I could give just a small
Oh,
addition
yeah.
on owner occupancy. Durham is an example of a place that originally had that in there, had to remove it because of a change in state law that made it unconstitutional.
Interesting.
It's not an unusual finding. What it comes down to is a court's looking at, should zoning regulate ownership? And a lot of courts have said no. So we would want to evaluate the legality or just the risk factors of considering that if there are better options available
Right.
to addressing what we want to address.
Well, because the last thing I want is for the P word to happen. We get preempted on this, and just getting our rights taken away. So I'm just going to guess Councilman Holman. He was closer to me.
Just, I'd be open to prohibiting short-term rentals in
Yeah.
them for sure. I like the idea of them being available for rental in some way for
Right.
long term. The students that can't afford maybe to live in the new apartments or whatever, and finding a way to, maybe we can't require ownership be on the property, but not allow short-term rentals and, other than that, though, I agree with Councilman Hall and you. I think it's a good opportunity to have density without completely redeveloping every lot into a
Absolutely.
three-story apartment building and
Right.
all that,
Yeah.
which is needed in certain places, but being able to add a unit in the back, adding density without
It's very much a light touch.
completely changing, I think, is what the Strong Towns is trying to get at.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Councilmember Nash.
It kind of becomes a scary thing if the owner of the property if that's not required to be their primary residence, because then we're just gonna see the problem of properties being snatched up to become rentals doubled, because then instead of making money on renting one house, now that parcel that you're buying, you put two on there and double that. But I don't remember what the terminology is, but with the assessor, your properties that are like the primary property that you own, that you live on, that I know it's listed there because you can get tax exemptions if it's your primary, like once you reach a certain age, I think 65 or something like that. That's your primary, homestead.
Yeah.
If it's restricted to that, so that one of these big developers with deep pockets doesn't go and buy every lot that they can find, just to turn them all into rentals plus an accessory rental.
Yeah.
Or if we limit this to, if we draw the distinction between accessory commercial unit versus dwelling unit, then, I don't know, but I think that definitely needs to be addressed before adopting anything.
No, I agree.
Okay. So we do have a few zoning districts where there's already 2 units allowed, like R2 and R3, or RM2 and RM6 are our apartment districts, where you can also have a single family house with a garage apartment, or you can have apartments. We didn't know if it was really necessary to allow ADUs there, because you can already have more than, RM6, you could have 100 units.
Right.
For reference, Durham only allowed it where there was a single family or a two-family
Okay.
dwelling.
Okay. No, I think that's within the spirit of it. I'm just wondering if that's going to back us into a corner at any point in the future. I can't really see it, but it's the unknown unknowns.
Yeah. We could always go back and add them.
Okay. Appreciate that.
It's a living document.
We can't predict every way that somebody's gonna exploit it.
And I guess if you did want to increase density, like in R2 and R3, the units allowed are determined by the square footage of the lot. So like for R3 is one I just kind of know. So if you have 9,000 square feet, you can have with every 3,000 more square feet on your lot, you can have one more unit. So we could always say with every 1,500 or every 1,000 more square feet, you can have another unit, just to increase density that way instead of having more structures or.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something to look at, because, again, increasing density without really, I say, overburdening the infrastructure. I mean, at a certain point, you will burden the infrastructure, but,
And those would have required parking.
okay,
Durham's was an exemption from density.
interesting.
They built it into the definition of.
Okay. Well, I know theirs was really successful, and they've seen a lot of products hit the market because of it. So if that's something Durham did, I'm willing to lean on their expertise a little bit.
So in that example, then for like R3, if they had a duplex on the lot, they could have an ADU. If they have an apartment house that has 3 units, they don't get anything else.
Okay.
Is that, okay.
Sounds good.
And then this might be something where Scott and Sean have to have input too, but in the core area and specifically some of the really old neighborhoods, we have a lot of legal non-conforming lots where to get a building permit for something, they would have to bring it into compliance. And I think that's where a lot of people were thinking ADUs would want to be placed.
Okay.
So I don't know, zoning wouldn't be a fix for that, I guess is what I'm getting at. It would also be a subdivision regulation issue. So I
So-
don't know if you guys have it, or we just have to sit down and talk about it probably, but
Okay.
We have to look at what those situations are.
Yeah, it'd probably be a case-by-case thing, I would imagine.
and they are pretty small lots, so I don't know how many it would even
Right.
be, but it's something to consider.
Like a patchwork of property lines.
Like in Old Silk Stocking, there's a lot of areas where they were platted as 25-foot wide lots by like 140, but they've been split up
Yeah.
a million different ways in
Right.
the 50s before subregs, and
Okay.
now here we are.
No, I think that's definitely something to look at.
Oh, what did you guys think about garage apartments and guest houses? It's a use that's already allowed, so do you want to take it away and say you can have an ADU? Or, because technically then they could end up with like 3 structures.
And
What we
so-
run into is guest houses are,
So if they
I don't
already
know,
have
if
one.
An either or.
they're probably being rented out even though they're
Yeah,
not supposed
I'd-
to. It's
I'd-
hard to,
Either or, I think that's the way
If they
to,
already have one, then
Yeah.
right.
I think with Durham, I think they may have allowed legal nonconforming existing guest houses of the size or what have you. And we could do that, but going forward, the simpler approach is garage apartments, guest houses, they're all a form of ADU, and going forward need to comply with those rules.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
I think,
that.
yeah.
yeah, if there's already a garage apartment, they can add an ADU. But some of those existing non-conforming ADUs and garage apartments we have in Norman are some of the biggest stock of affordable housing we have.
Right, right.
Too,
It
so-
is.
so then like an A2 where you could have a 1,500 square foot guest house, now you can only have 650.
Would it be a guest house or an ADU though? Because the difference between the two is kitchen.
And being able to rent it. Essentially, it would take out guest houses from the zoning if you wanted to go with ADU, but then you would lose this.
So then I think that
Flexibility
needs
for
to be
square
worked out in
footage.
the, like, we still haven't figured out what is the full max square footage. And I think that is a different conversation when we get out into the more rural part of our community. Like, Durham doesn't have a rural part of their community, do they? Or is it more urban, suburban?
I don't know, but they did have an exception to their cap in a particular district where they took it to a percentage, and that could have been why. I just
So I'm
wasn't
wondering
able
if
to
there's a
drill.
way that we can do something like that where there's like larger lots and, you know,
Because we were thinking
more land.
2 acres or more, because RE is 2 acres, but then you could have an R1 lot where you have
Sure.
2 acres.
We got them all over the place.
So it's-
Yeah,
So if we could think
It's hard to.
no, I understand.
realistically about where our exceptions might be like that, and baking some of those things into our ordinance.
So
might
if we
be
did something in like,
smart.
I guess we could base it on zoning or we could base it on acreage, but if you did like RE, A1, and A2, which are typically our larger lots, would you want to have a different cap? And if you did, what would it be?
I mean, I think so, because what is, for guest houses, like how big could they be in those areas?
I mean, really, at
Supporting
this
it
time, they
too.
could be,
It's a
if
very
you have a
loose standard.
3,000 square foot house, you could have a 2,000 square foot guest house.
Okay.
Well, it sounds like we still have, it's just the last slide before I
We have
cut you
kind
off.
of a summary of where we are pretty sure we want to allow them. R1, R1A, which is our attached single family, RE, A1 and A2. And then we're planning to bring this forward to February Planning Commission, so we wanted to know if you wanted us to come back here. We could either push off Planning Commission or we could come back between Planning Commission and Council.
I'd love to just see this process move as fast as possible, within reason, obviously. And so if everybody here is just fine having it come back to the full study session, I think I'm okay with it.
So do study session, Planning Commission, then study session.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we think that we can address all of the things that we've talked about today by February?
And if we need more time, we can punt then.
I'm just like, there were a lot of questions for staff
Sure.
and like
Yeah,
I'm not trying to slow
No,
play this,
I-
but like, this is really important.
It
And
is.
we need to, make sure that at least for the most part, we're crossing our Ts and dotting our Is. And there's like there's some inter-department conversations that need to happen with Public Works and Planning, and Legal. And so I mean, I don't know, I think that based on the discussion today, I would say that it needs to come back to BACA before it goes to a full study session.
okay.
I mean, that's kind of,
I was gonna add,
January BACA.
yeah.
yes.
And I think in that time frame, we could still make February Planning Commission and everything, right? If some of the stuff's fully vetted out,
We just have to submit January 2nd.
Don't forget that there's a holiday,
right? Well, and that's why I was,
And we have
that's why I was wondering if we just go
Yeah.
with the most aggressive schedule, and then if we can't make it, we just postpone.
So I kind of lean towards we can always push it back.
We are desperate for affordable housing and just housing in general in Norman. And even a month, it's like,
And we do get a lot of calls for like out east, people wanting more of the family
right.
thing. But
We
or we
looked
can
at
come to
Honolulu.
BACA, and if we're not ready,
Why can we not come to BACA?
Just-
And
that's what I
then we
just
could also get it on a
mentioned.
study session
So
and
just-
still go the timeline
Which
for
one?
planning, and then if it's not ready, then you
Oh, no.
postpone.
That's what I was
I
just.
still,
Yeah,
I
I'd
still
That's what I was
think it
just
needs
about
to
to
come
say.
Places that
back.
are
I was about to say the exact same thing.
There's a way to do all of
physically
this together.
landlocked for a
Bring it
long
back to
time.
BACA, but let's try to keep the aggressive time frame. If we can't make that, we'll know by BACA next month, and we can adjust.
Just January 4th.
Honolulu's ordinance is
Okay,
1541.
gosh, which I won't be here.